Or no, the 4 seat. They put it in the 4 seat, 6 and 4. They get the 4 seat. Yeah, in overtime. We're in overtime. The Clippers won, so it pushed the Wolves down into the 6 to play the Lakers rather than.
Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, April 15th, 2025, times 9 a.m. We'll begin our Board of Commissioners regular board meeting. All commissioners are present, as well as Auditor, Treasurer, and County Coordinator. If you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our third agenda item is to ask if there are any amendments to the agenda today.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have an amendment to remove 7.2, accepting the federal DNR boat and water grant. We will be removing that.
So we remove 7.2, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so with removal of 7.2, can I get a motion to approve the agenda then?
So moved.
Oh, I'll tell second.
All right, Randy, Commissioner Newman, and Commissioner Noska. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Can we move on to item 4, potential cassette items, please?
Today I have the meeting minute approval for April 1st and April 10th for 2025. Resignation lead eligibility worker Terry Benzie, 4/11/2025. Hire administrative specialist Tara Standick, start date to be determined.
Thank you. Item 4 needs a motion to get approved. Can I get a motion, please?
I'll make a motion for the approval of the consent items.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
Second is now on call. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item 4, County Auditor Treasurer, please.
The first item I have is the auditor warrants. Background is sent for your review. The recommendation is that the Todd County Board of Commissioners approve the following by motion: to approve the March 2025 auditor warrants with an ACH and a manual payment totaling the amount of $1,433,724.66.
All right, the item in front of us is our auditor warrants in total of $1,433,724.66. Roll call.
It will be once you get a motion in a second.
Can I get a motion first, though?
So moved.
Yes.
Thank you, Randy. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second, Lou, thank you. Any discussion? No discussion, a little roll call.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Noska?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Denny?
Yes.
Commissioner Byers?
Yep.
The next item I have would be Commissioner warrants. Background was sent for your review. Recommendation is to approve the Commissioner warrants with an ACH and a manual payment totaling in the amount of $134,662.50.
All right, item 5.2, Commissioner awards in the amount of $134,662.50. We would need a motion to get that approved.
So moved.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Barb. Seconded. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call, please.
Commissioner Denny?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Noska?
Yes.
Commissioner Byers?
Yep.
The next item I have is the Health and Human Service Commissioner warrants. Background is sent for review. Recommendation is to approve the Health and Human Service warrants with a ACH and a manual payment totaling the amount of $75,354.92.
Very good, thank you. 5.3, Health and Human Service Commissioner Awards, amount of $75,354.92. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Noska. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Denny. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call, please.
Noska?
Yes.
Commissioner Denny?
Yes.
Commissioner Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Newman?
Yes.
Commissioner Byers?
Yes.
The last item I have then is the Health and Human Service SSIS warrants. Background is sent for your review. Recommendation to approve the Health and Human Service SSIS warrants with an ACH and a manual payment totaling in the amount of $64,492.44.
Thank you. 5.4 is now Health and Human Services SSI warrants in the amount of $64,492.44. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion for approval.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Newman. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yep. On to 6, Public Works.
Good morning.
Morning, Lord.
Morning, Lauren.
The item this morning for Public Works is a request for MnDOT to conduct a speed limit study on County Road 11 near Adams Drive. With your permission, I'd just like to read the resolution into record. Whereas on June 16th, 2020, the Todd County Board of Commissioners passed a resolution requesting the Minnesota Department of Transportation conduct a speed limit study on County Road 11 from the Stearns County line to Ada Drive in order to determine a reasonable and safe speed limit. And whereas on November 23rd, 2020, the Minnesota Department of Transportation submitted a letter to the Todd County engineer recommending no change in the 55 mile per hour speed limit at this time, after completing an engineering and traffic investigation. And whereas due to some recent crashes on County Road 11 near Adams Drive, some Todd County residents have expressed concerns over the appropriateness of the 50 mile per hour regulatory speed limit on County Road 11 from the Stearns County line to Ada Drive in Candota Township. And whereas by Minnesota Statute 169.14 Subdivision 5, local authorities can request the Commissioner of the Department of Transportation to authorize a speed limit on a local non-trunk highway roadway. Now therefore be it resolved that the Todd County Board of Commissioners does hereby request the Commissioner of Transportation to make the necessary investigation to determine the reasonable and safe speed limit as provided in section 169.14 subdivisions 5 of the Minnesota statutes on Todd County Road 11 from the Stearns County line to Ada Drive in Candota Township. So our options are, as said here on the board action form, is to approve the attached resolution or do not. And our recommendation at this time is to approve the attached resolution requesting MnDOT to conduct the speed limit study on County Road 11 near Adams Drive.
Thank you. So we have in front of us a 6.1 request for MnDOT to conduct a speed limit study on County Road 1 near Adams Driveway. They're asking for approval to do that, so we need a motion to approve.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Newman. Any seconds?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Noska. Would we like to discuss this at all, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. It seems like we're getting more and more accidents down on County Road 11, especially down in the Ferry Lake area. There was one last week. Actually, there was two last week, one in this area and then one on 2 and 11.
Correct.
And the residents were texting me and emailing me, telling me that they thought it was in this area, but it was actually 11 and 2. But still, they're driving way over the speed limit in this area, and we got to get it reduced.
If I may comment on that, just so we're aware, there is in this area specifically, there's a Kirby road sign, north and south of this area, plus a 40 mile per hour warning sign, speed limit placard, which is the little yellow one, which isn't enforceable, but it's a recommendation. So they're going above and beyond that. What we're requesting here is MnDOT to actually do the study and put up a black on white type sign. So one that the sheriff can actually enforce.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between the yellow and the white, and we're asking basically for the white one where he can send a squad out there and basically, unfortunately, write tickets.
Yeah, because somebody's going to get seriously hurt, and they just got to slow down.
Thank you, Commissioner Newman. Any other discussion? Well, hearing no discussion, we have a motion to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
All right,
Lauren.
thank you very much.
Thanks, Lauren.
Item 7, County Sheriff.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Two board actions this morning. The first board action, Todd County Sheriff's Office received the DNR boat and water grant for the amount of $11,208 for the 2025 fiscal year. Our options to accept the grant or do not accept the grant. Recommendations to accept the DNR grant. This is a state grant for $11,208 for the 2025 fiscal year.
Okay, 7.1 is accept the DNR boat and water grant. We would need a motion to approve that.
I would like to make the motion to accept the DNR boat and water grant.
Wonderful, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
And we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, accepted.
Thank you. The second board action is the Sheriff's Office is in need of 3 in-squad camera systems from Motorola. The background is the Todd County Sheriff's Office needed 3 in-squad camera systems from Motorola for the price of $22,674.60. Options are to approve the purchase or do not approve the purchase. Our recommendation is to approve the 3 in-squad camera systems from Motorola for the price of $22,674.60. Our camera systems, like everything else, wear out through time, and so what we end up doing is taking the camera systems from one squad and putting it in the next squad until they become obsolete. We're at the point now where we're running low on those systems, so we'll put these 3 in the 3 squads we're getting this year, and then if there's any of those ones that are in the old squads are any good, we'll put them on the shelf and we'll use them for the next year's squads.
Okay, 7.3, purchase 3 in-squad camera system from Motorola, $22,674.60. It appears to be budgeted. I would need a motion to approve that.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Noska. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Denny. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks, Mike.
Item 8, planning and zoning, echo request for CUP.
Good morning.
Morning.
Just my single item today is for an ECHO request for CUP, an application for CUP to establish a mini storage facility on parcel 2800-12803 in Wycombe Township was submitted on March 10th. The application was reviewed by the Planning Commission during the April 3rd public hearing, and the final recommendation from the Planning Commission was to grant the CUP with the conditions below. Option would be to grant the CUP with the proposed conditions, develop findings, and deny the CUP or remand it back to the Planning Commission. Recommendation is to adopt the findings of the Planning Commission and grant the CUP with the following conditions. 1, that access to the storage facility site shall be limited to 145th Avenue and that the applicant abide by all other applicable federal, state, and local standards.
Thank you. So 8.1 is the echo request for CUP, conditional use permit, and we need a motion to approve that.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Denny. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And Commissioner Becker on the second. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
We're either ahead of schedule or is Mike coming today? Anybody know?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Mike, there's a mic on here, solid waste next.
Really? Just come back.
We can come back to it, of course. Yeah, we can
come
go.
back to it, yeah.
Well, you prepared? Come on up. We'll move on to item number 10 on the agenda, which is Health and Human Services.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Good morning, Director.
We have a few items here to present in front of you today. First one being the fraud prevention investigation and prosecution interagency agreement. Some background. Todd County Health and Human Services, the Todd County Sheriff, and the Todd County Attorney desire to establish cooperative procedures for the effective enforcement of food support and Minnesota Family Investment Program, which is also called MFIP. Rules and regulations, investigation and prosecution of food support and MFIP fraud cases, and for the effective enforcement, investigation, and prosecution of public assistance program with fraud cases. Your options are to approve the fraud prevention investigation program, cooperative agreement between Todd County Health and Human Services, the Sheriff's Office, Todd County Sheriff's Office, and the County Attorney's Office, or to not approve. It's our recommendation you approve the fraud prevention investigation program cooperative agreement between Todd County Health and Human Services, Todd County Sheriff, and the Todd County Attorney's Office. We have Deputy Winter here today to talk a little bit about what we've been doing over the last few years and some statistics, as well as Stephen in the program.
So just a little background on the fraud prevention. So it is an FNS requirement that we have a fraud prevention program in place. What year did we?
2020.
2020 is when we went with the Sheriff's Office doing the investigations. County does keep a percentage of overpayments that we determine based on fraud results, so it is it's in the county's interest to have a robust, fraud prevention program, because we do keep a percentage. It's approximately 25% for most programs. The housing support program overpayments, we don't keep any of that, but the other programs we do keep approximately 25%, depending on, the program. But just a little background. I should hand these out, I forgot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
So I don't know, Travis, if you want to maybe go over a little bit of these numbers and
So,
explain some of it.
did you guys get this one with my handwritten
It's on the back
kind
side
of
of
numbers
the-
on them?
Yep.
So basically, once I get a referral from them, there's a couple other ways we can get them. We have online reporting through the state that'll come to me. Todd County has it set up with a website too, or a link they can click on to make an anonymous report to me if they suspect fraud. So basically, a lot of mine come from eligibility workers, but once I get the referral, I start gathering the facts, looking into the case. At some point, once I have all the information collected, I will go out and interview the people. Along with me, most of the time I bring so on section 5 is the ADH activities. If you see that first line there, it says waivers signed. So 3, that's me going to their house and interviewing them, presenting them the facts, what I found, and then I give them, there's options, there's a couple options. They can either sign the waiver, which disqualifies them for a year, and then that cuts the funding immediately, I think, for them, right? So as far as the program or the state grant goes, when I get a waiver signed, I get $1,000 for that. That shows us $1,000 that I saved right there. So I did 3 of those within this time frame. The hearing upheld, if you go down a couple, that is if people don't, they can sign, they have an option to have an administrative hearing. That is where I send all of my state to the or all of my information to the state, to the DHS, to a judge, and then they schedule a hearing with me and the client. And then the state can present our facts, they can present their facts, then the judge ultimately makes a decision on what they wanna do. If they're going to uphold it, or if they're going to allow the client to continue to get services. So one of those, I had one hearing, and that one got upheld, so we were able to stop the program there. So I show $1,000 savings for that as well. Under section 6, the savings total, the $9,848, if I go to their house, or even if I don't interview them, if they stop the payments, or they quit the program, then I show a savings on that for a monthly savings. What the state does is they take that times 4 months. They'll show a 4-month savings instead of a 12 months for a whole year. So that's that number right there. The overpayment total, the $31,245, that's if they've been on the program for a little while, we intervene and we're able to show a savings on that. I can get payroll information and provide that to eligibility workers, and I don't know what their calculations are, how they run, but they'll show how much money these people were overpaid through the program prior to us getting involved with it. So we show a savings there. If you look over on that column, on the overpayment total, the $15,939, that's for the federal medical side of things. Those ones are, I can't go and have them sign the waiver like I do for the food and the SNAP. That one has to go through prosecution at the county attorney's office. So those reports I will send to the county attorney's office. They will look into that. They will charge people with what we call, it's financial fraud or theft, basically, of government program assistance. So that's where that comes from. If we get a conviction on that, then we can show the savings of like that $15,939. And then when I do forward them to criminal, so under section 7 referred to criminal, if the county attorney accepts the case, then I get saved another $1,000 for that. So basically within this time frame, I've saved $46,093 is what it shows, so.
Mr. Chair, if I could, do you ever, on the overpayments, can you ever collect any of the overpayments that they had already received?
Yeah, I got a story on that. I got overpayments I showed on a lady. Not gonna give a name, of course, but she came to our office, after tax time and showed us her taxes. And she wanted to she thought someone stole her identity. Well, I got looking into that a little bit, and the amount she was missing out of her tax return was the same amount that she had overpayment. So the state actually
The state
took her
did.
money, yeah.
Okay.
So to pay back the overpayments on that. I mean, that was one incident. I
Yeah.
don't know how the rest of it works, but.
Yes, so as far as overpayments, when Travis comes to the eligibility worker and lets them know exactly when the situation changed, so somebody moved, they're not reporting somebody in the household, and Travis discovers that that person has always been in the household or moved in at some point, they can go back to that point and then recalculate the budget. So when it comes, especially to income, if it's unreported income, when we ordinarily process an application or have somebody open on a program, there are a lot of different deductions and allowances, based on, earned income disregard, things like that. If we calculate overpayments, all of those go away. So it's, we look at the actual income and calculate the overpayment based on it. They don't get any allowances because it was not reported.
Okay.
Just to comment, Mr. Chair, we have a revenue recapture program that is the same way, that when they know that they haven't paid, they will go to the Department of Revenue, and Revenue Recapture will take their funds, just like that case scenario. So there is that program out there that catches that.
Because a claim would be filed with the state, and then they would pursue that.
What is the caseload like now? Like, I mean, we have a stack, from here to the top of my head of cases to follow up on, or is it kind of a?
So, per the contract, 40% of our time is supposed to be allocated to this grant. I'm not near getting that 40% of the time, so, and I'm actually supposed to be getting about 12 cases referred to me and closed within a month. There's some guys in the state do it full-time, and they're at 25 plus, they're required for the state. We're supposed to be at 12, and I'm not getting there, so.
Okay.
And Travis and the sheriff can, workforce has been an issue for the sheriff's department, so when they do have time, and we appreciate you allowing us to work with our sheriff's office, because we had been contracted prior to this arrangement with a consortium out of Cass County, which we got very little time from, which is why we entered into the agreement locally here, so we can at least work on these when time allows.
Oh, great work. I mean, this is amazing. I'm very impressed and happy.
Yeah, we are as well. Thank you.
Good job. Okay, do we need a motion then to do this agreement? Okay,
I'll make that motion.
thank you, Commissioner Becker. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Denny. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great work. That's awesome.
All right, now that Catherine got her sprint in for the morning, track meet. We're here to request to present the approval of the reciprocal memorandum of agreement for the environmental health services between Horizon Health and Todd County Health and Human Services. Some background. The Minnesota Department of Health requires Todd County Health and Human Services to have a backup agreement for our food pools and lodging delegation. The attached reciprocal memorandum of agreement between Horizon Public Health and Todd County provides interim environmental health services to meet the needs of the delegation agreement. Your options are to approve the reciprocal memorandum of agreement for environmental health services between Horizon Public Health and Todd County Health and Human Services, or to not approve. It's our recommendation we approve the reciprocal memorandum of agreement for environmental health services between Horizon Public Health and Todd County Health and Human Services, and the contract has been attached for your review.
For those who don't know what Horizon is, it's a combination CHB of Douglas, Pope, Grant, Stevens, and Traverse counties. So Douglas County is, of course, the largest of those. So they have 2 sanitarians on site, so we'd be able to utilize them if needed, and same with our sanitarian. So, and we already have an agreement with Morrison County, very similar. We are required to have 2 backup.
Okay, item 10.2 is the approval of the reciprocal memorandum between these two, our organization and their organization. We need a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, and then on the contract, change it from Barb Becker as board chair to Bob Byers as chair.
Thank you for catching that.
There's actually 2.
I'll second that. I'll second that.
Wait a minute, I'm just kidding. Okay, motion by Randy with a change, seconded by Commissioner Noska. Any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next request is to hire a resource navigator / interpreter. Some background, as discussed at the April 1st, 2025 work session, Community Health Services has a need for a resource navigator / interpreter to assist the public health nurses with their duties with interpretation. Your options are to authorize a hiring of a resource navigator / interpreter, or to not authorize. It's our recommendation, the hiring of the resource navigator interpreter. The grade and salary did just come in at 9 o'clock. That came in, and Nellie is here as well, as a grade E, starting at $23.58 through $31.14, where we thought.
And that's the same as the current position as a case aide.
Mr. Chair, we will add that to the financial implications. Do you have a resourcing fund?
The grading and classification, you will?
Like to list a department, do you have a resource name that we put in there? Is it HHS or?
Public health. Public health, yeah.
Public health?
Yeah.
And all the commissioners understand the grading and classification. Same classification grading as what they had expected and current position is.
But I do have a question. It says it's not budgeted. I thought that during
Well, it's a
our
new
work
position.
session, that it would, that you had finances to cover that, but it would not have been budgeted last year. Okay.
Correct. And we'll bring to board next time to eliminate the case aide position. So this will offset.
Okay.
But yes, it is confusing.
Everybody follow? Okay. We have to make a motion if we would like to approve, so.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Noska. Would there be a second out there?
I'll second it.
Second, Commissioner Denny. Further discussion, commissioners? Further discussion? Okay, hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next board action is a request to eliminate the one care coordinator position, and this would be in adult services unit. So some background, as discussed at the April 10th, 2025 work session, the need to fill the open care coordinator position has decreased with healthcare program changes. Your options are to approve the elimination of one care coordinator position from the adult services unit, or to not eliminate. Do not eliminate. It is our recommendation to approve the elimination of one care coordinator position from the adult services unit.
The motion would be needed to accept this request.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Denny. Now, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any discussion, please?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. So that, if I recall, that position is empty currently? So we're not eliminating anyone, we're just,
No,
okay, yep.
it was
Yeah.
an open position that had been
Right,
filled.
okay.
Actually, it's been open for
I was
quite a
just,
while.
I was
Yeah.
just refreshing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Nope,
yeah,
that
thank
was a
you.
good question.
Yep, so, no, I'm good.
Okay, any other discussion, questions, comments? Well, hearing no more, we would like to take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Carried.
All right, my next request is the request to hire an accounting supervisor. Some background, as discussed at the April 10th, 2025 work session, the Administrative Services Manager job description has been revised into an accounting supervisor job description. The Administrative Services Manager position, and I see position is spelled wrong, will no longer be needed with this revision. Your options are to authorize the hiring of an accounting supervisor or to not authorize. Our recommendation is to authorize the hiring of an accounting supervisor. Again, it's not put as budgeted because it'll be eliminating one to hire the other. It came in as a grade J, which is one step less than the manager had been. So that would be a grade J between salary of a $36.64, top pay of $45.75.
Gallagher must have got this done in time, huh? Is that this morning? 9:04.
9:05, but we'll give them that minute.
I'll make a motion to approve the hire of accounting supervisor.
Motion made by Commissioner Noska. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Denny on a second. Discussion, commissioners, staff.
So, Mr. Chair, this individual's gonna have an accounting degree, I'm assuming, correct?
It is, we did put that as a preferred accounting degree, or they're gonna need to have an extensive amount of experience to support as equal to a degree.
Right, because this position is a lot of responsibility, and there's a lot of knowledge that needs to be put into this position.
Correct. We would like to have somebody with some extensive general ledger experience, as they will be leading our accounting unit.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Newman. Any other further discussion? I might myself just recommend that when this day is done and someone has the time, if you could take one of these org charts and redraw it with the different titles and still the color coding that some of us like for opening or, whatever, I'd appreciate it. And maybe just get another copy to everybody so as turnover goes on, we can keep in touch with this. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing no other discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Jackie, that'll be something that your office will do? What? Is that something your office will do? That's what I thought. Okay, just to make sure.
I'm
we
sorry,
know who's doing it.
Nellie was nodding
All right.
yes, so I think she's,
Okay, perfect, thank you. All right, our next is the request to eliminate the Administrative Services Manager position. Some background as discussed at the April 10th, 2025 work session. The Administrative Services Manager position will no longer be needed with the addition of the Accounting Supervisor position. Your options are to approve the elimination of the Administrative Services Manager position or to not approve. It's our recommendation you approve the elimination of the Administrative Services Manager position.
okay, let's look at the elimination of the Administrative Service Manager position, 10.6. We do need a motion to do that.
I'll make that motion for the elimination of the administrative service manager position.
Yeah, thank you. We definitely need, and second.
I'll second it.
Commissioner Denny got the second. Any discussion? There shouldn't be too much discussion. Okay, no discussion then. Anybody, let's take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
I thank you for your support on that, and hopefully we'll have a good pool of candidates to choose from. All right, lastly, is the request to hire 2 lead eligibility workers. Some background. As discussed at the April 10th, 2025 work session, the Financial Support Services Unit has a need for 2 lead eligibility workers with the restructuring of the Health and Human Services Department. The position provides training to other staff and will also carry a caseload. Your options are authorized to hiring the 2 eligibility workers or to not authorize. It's our recommendation that you authorize the hiring of 2 lead eligibility workers.
Thank you. 10.7 is to request to hire 2 lead eligibility workers. Their recommendation is to, from our staff, is to do this. Is there any motion to do this?
Can we have some discussion first?
Open up for discussion, please.
Yeah, so you got back from Gallagher. Where did that come in compared to the original eligibility worker position?
The lead came in, that was not something that we reclassified, or this is just gonna be in addition to an existing position already.
Okay, so it's not a different
No,
pay grade
no.
or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so it's just the same as the other,
Right.
okay. Good enough.
Okay. I think if I may voice my thoughts on this, is that it's very important that I think that at least myself, believe that they're going to have a caseload, which you just talked about. I'm not sure what that caseload, if they can put a number to it, but that's the expectation. Especially in these, as times flex up, the volume goes up and down. When it flexes down, the training is something I'd like to, at some point, not saying it has to be today because I didn't ask for it today, but I would like to see what the training plan is. Like, I'd like to understand that, because we have a lot of turnover sometimes, and, I don't know if anybody can put their exact finger on what that turnover is, but if it is because, lack of training, they're just, overwhelmed with cases and supervisors are doing that, you'd think there'd be like a sense of, what am I doing here? Both as a team and and operationally. So I would expect that this director and your staff come back to us with what that training plan looks like in writing.
Yeah, we could certainly do that. There are most of it is required by DHS, so they have the classroom training set up. So all the prerequisites for the classroom for each program are set by DHS. It would be one of our biggest complaints. So it's like a full week. So the prerequisites can take up to 2 weeks to complete for each program, and then they have a whole entire week of all day in the classroom. But they technically don't learn the job until they're doing it. So it's been a discussion with DHS. They're aware of the issues with it. They've started since the going online with these classroom trainings. They're not successful. They're not learning what they should be learning.
It's a matter of, everybody does a little bit better when you're in person in a classroom versus doing it remotely.
Yeah.
And we're finding, we're struggling with how maybe the instructor is leading the class sometimes. They're very distracted when the instructors from DHS are remote as well. And there's kids crying in the background, and they're trying to, I can kind of tell you some horror stories that how these instructor-led classrooms have been happening. But we are working with DHS to get through those as they come up and as we are made aware. We are also working with DHS on adding more classes, because counties are seeing turnover in this area across the state, and there is just not enough seats in a classroom to get people trained with the need. For example, you got your larger counties in the metro that will reserve 10 spots out of a 15-spot classroom. So they're taking up over half, if not 2/3 of that classroom. And then, a week prior, they'll say, oh, we didn't hire what we anticipated. So we're working with DHS about adding the volume that's necessary to truly train what the need is across the state.
And what we've seen with the online that has increased is the being overwhelmed. So prior to that, when new workers went down to DHS in St. Paul and had classroom training, it's more structured. There's more confidence. All their materials are given to them. Now they're responsible for printing all their materials themselves. They have all these pre-meetings. It's more time consuming, and they're not getting as much out of it, for sure.
Yeah, I just want you to take this opportunity, if this comes to life, it's a fairly decent organizational change. And I want you to take this opportunity to make it a change that's going to be lasting and cut down on their turnover. I'm the youngest one, or the most least experienced here, but I've never seen this roster not full. So whatever, you know, that's your playground, your sandbox. So,
Yeah,
you know,
that's what
both of your sandbox. So we got to figure it out and become leaders in this, not like everyone else. Let's not be like everyone else.
I would agree.
Yeah.
The new workers need one-on-one attention. They,
Right.
you know, and it's very difficult at this point to give them that. So that would be what our intention is that they have an answer right at their fingertips when they need it.
Yeah, and just, you know, I know we have to have meetings, but let's get these people in, get them trained, you know, get our, you know, more meetings aren't always the answer. Sometimes it's just send down one-on-one and roll up your sleeves for the entire day and train them. More discussion?
Yes, budget-wise, this is not budgeted again because it's a new position and so forth. What overall budget, where's your budget at and what does it look like?
We've been analyzing our budget. That's is why we are, you know, we're always ebbing and flowing based on, you know, contracts and revenues and expenses, why we are absorbing some of those positions as we bring forward. We believe, you know, as we've got a couple social worker positions that are open that we're gonna hold on, and we have held on filling for quite some time. We have a care coordinator position that we eliminated. We have a cost savings from going from a manager to a supervisor. And then, you know, there's potential, I think, opportunities as we look ahead into 2025 and 2026 as well. So we want to be very cautious, but very accountable to the budget and how you know, we're spending county levy tax dollars.
Even as the news we're hearing from the state or federal government, we're still going to be within working budget?
Right, and it's hard because we don't have that magic 8 ball. We don't know what's gonna land come the end of May, early July, as the state budget is a July to July calendar. So hopefully we'll hear a little bit more from Senator Utke today and Representative Weider and where things are at. But we are trying to plan ahead as much as we can and knowing what the possible forecast is.
As a county, through the first quarter, we are roughly 23% of what we budgeted. So we're slightly below our budgeted amount. That's as a county whole. That would be every department. We learned this yesterday in our quarterly financial meeting, which is good, and we pay a lot. We do pay for a lot of stuff early on, like insurance premiums and AMC dues and things like that. So I don't recall specifically how HHS was, but I think they're in the ballpark.
Yeah,
Yeah, but as a whole, we're 2%. You know, kind of. If you thought quarter of the year would be 25% of your budget would be spent, we're like 23%. If something would have really stood out, you would have already got a call from Tim or I. Probably Tim. He's the hammer.
Mr. Chair, yeah, we are on track to where, to where we should be as well. Jetta does calculate those out at the, each month, and we track it very closely. So we are staying within our budget as well.
So as we go through April, May, June, we're in 26, for building 26, we can, if this were to get passed, we would be able to get in. We're gonna have a little 25 hit here if it happens, and have to work together and figure that out, but any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may. Steve, Jackie, is it possible in maybe 6 months after you get these positions hired and stuff, you give us a little update on how it's working?
Sure.
Because we'd like to hear at least that things are going in the right direction rather than just being in the dark. I'll hopefully cross our fingers that it's working and then maybe things are imploding. I don't know. Just at least give us a little update would be great so we can have
Absolutely
a review
would like
on
to
that.
do that.
Yeah, we'd appreciate that. Thank you.
I like that. That's a good idea. I mean, we obviously, if there's less hiring, it's probably working, but, we'd just like to see how the training's going and everything Lou said, so.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On Thursday's work session, there was 8 openings within your department. So today we are fulfilling 4 of them. So there's gonna be 4
Nellie, you'll have to help
left.
me, because the totality of that, I don't always keep track of what's open, I mean, what's been filled.
Because on the org chart, it was, I wrote down 8. There was 8 openings, and if we're fulfilling 4 of them today, you have, is that correct?
This is it.
Look back at Jackie's email from yesterday. She had all the openings, didn't you?
Well, the reason I'm asking is if she still has 4 positions that are still open, you know, and you look at this as not budgeted, actually, she's got 4 positions haven't been fulfilled, so they're budgeted.
Nah, we haven't paid, yeah, they're budgeted, but we haven't spent the money.
Exactly.
That was my frustration last work session, to be quite honest with all the commissioners, that, hey, we haven't spent that money. It's actually still there, but,
Right.
So we currently, Commissioner Newman, we currently have 4 social workers open. We're actively filling 2. And then potentially 2 lead eligibility workers. We'll have a 3rd lead because we had a board approved a resignation today.
Okay,
Plus we'll have the accounting supervisor.
And 1 case aid under Stephen.
Yes, and 1 case aide.
so here I got administrative services manager, which we changed.
Yep,
Okay.
gone.
Then I go down and we had a vacancy lead eligibility worker.
Correct.
And then down below that is a vacancy PCA, para case aide, which I think we filled today. Is that the?
Nope.
No,
Nope.
that's a different
Okay.
one.
And then we have a social worker under Jacob, and then we have a care coordinator under Hillary
That we eliminated.
That
That
was
was eliminated.
eliminated today.
today.
Yeah.
That's one of them we eliminated.
Yep.
So that takes it from 8 to 7, okay? And then on the last page, we have social worker, and social worker,
Yep. That's correct.
right? So we're filling 7 out of the, or 4 out of the 7.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So we still have 3 left.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're gonna hold on those.
I'm just
on
trying to
3.
keep this straight because it's getting
It's-
a little confusing.
Sure.
Nellie. Okay, any other discussion?
Good.
Really good discussion today on this, I like it. Good job, everybody. Don't hear any other discussion, so at this point, if we want to move forward, we would need a motion, because we don't have one yet.
I'll make the motion to hire 2 lead eligibility workers.
Motion by Commissioner Noska, would there be a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Denny. Any further discussion?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Please bring back a report as far as how this is working out. I agree with you, Lou.
Yeah, I just, hopefully it's working out great. I mean, obviously, we're trying to make the best decisions we can with your guidance, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I may, we do a spring and a fall update for our department. So we'll do the spring update, and then the fall, I'll ask Stephen, we'll bring this update back in the fall.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Like our intention and what we would first see is that because they're working leads, they're gonna have a caseload, that if we are able to get training under control and get retention higher, then, you know,
yeah.
in the future, we may not need to replace, you know, the eligibility worker positions, you know, at any given time. That's what we're hoping.
Yeah.
Yeah, retention and efficiency in your current workforce and up to speed quicker with new work, yeah, we get it. Any more discussion? More discussion? All right, here no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Mr. Chair, since Mike is here, we'll take Mike.
Yeah, I've seen Mike sitting there patiently. He's a patient man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's good discussion.
Look forward to hearing about the success of your
Yeah.
programs. Morning, Mike.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
The first item we have before you is the purchase of three 30-yard roll-off purchase containers. Background is in February 2024, Todd County Solid Waste was awarded $186,625 in grant funds through the Minnesota Greater Recycling Grant Program. This grant will be used to increase recycling capacity and outreach for the rural communities. The goal of this is to establish 3 remote recycle bin sites, which is tentatively Bertha, Bertram, and West Union, are in development stages right now. The purchase of these 3 roll-off recycle containers will support the operation of these sites. Execution of this grant is May 2027. Protainer submitted a bid of $37,065 for the 3 30-yard recycled cardboard containers. The options are to award the bid to Protainer or not to award the bid. It is our recommendation to award the bid to Protainer Incorporated for the amount of $37,065. This is a budgeted item through the Minnesota Greater Recycling Grant.
Thank you. So we have agenda item 9.1 for those that are listening from home that we've skipped around here, but we're back to 9.1, which is the 30-yard recycle roll-off purchase. And we have a recommendation to award the bid to Protainer in the amount of $37,065. We need a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Becker. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Denny on the second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. 9.2.
Okay, the last item I have is the purchase for window treatments for the new facility. Background in support of the new office scale house for the transfer station facility, Innovative Office Solutions designed and prepared a proposal that will supply the facility with window treatments. The amount of this proposal is $7,594.24. This purchase was discussed at our committee level. Options are to award the bid to Innovative's Office Solutions in the amount of $7,594.24, or do not award the bid. It is our recommendation to award the bid to Innovative Office Solutions in the amount of $7,594.24.
Thank you. 9.2 item is the window treatment purchase. It's been recommended that they award the bid to Innovative Office Solutions in the amount of $75.94.24. We would need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Newman. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Denny on the second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Now we're going to move on to agenda item 11.1, personnel policy revisions from our admin team.
All right, the first BAF I have for you is personnel policy revisions. Background on this BAF is based on input from the policy committee. We are presenting the following proposed revisions and additions to the personnel policy effective January 1st, 2025. These changes pertain to the following sections. Section 7.02 vacations, Section 7.04 holidays, Section 7.05 sick leave, and Section 7.21 Minnesota State Retirement System Healthcare Savings Plan. Attached is the resolution. Options are 1, to approve the attached resolution, or 2, do not approve the resolution. The recommendation would be to approve the attached resolution for the adoption of changes to the personnel policy regarding the following sections with an effective date January 1st, 2025.
Okay, in front of us is 11.1, the personnel policy revisions as stated by our HR manager. We would need a motion to approve these.
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Please.
These are pretty much the ones that were changed throughout our union contracts, correct?
Yes, it would make it uniform across.
Okay, I'll make that motion for approval.
Thank you, Commissioner Becker. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Nosk on a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. 11.2, termination.
Yes, the second BAF I have is for termination of employee number 1053. The background on this is the individual is currently within their probationary period, and due to performance-related concerns, we are requesting board approval for formal termination of employment. Options would be 1, terminate employee number 1053 effective April 4th, 2025, or option 2, do not terminate. The recommendation would be to terminate employee number 1053 effective April 4th, 2025.
Thank you. We have the 11.2, termination of this employee number 1053. We would need a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Newman. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And second by Commissioner Nosk. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've been right on time. Standing reports, County Auditor Treasurer, what do you got for us? A bunch, okay.
First item would be the CLA is wrapping up the audit as I speak. Sounds like we're in the final process. If we stay on track, Doug Host will be here to present early part of May. I'm hoping the first meeting in May, otherwise it'll be the second, and then we can fully move on to our schedule of our finance meetings in the summer. Also, the Osaka special election results, total voting, it was 1,336 voters from Douglas, Todd, and Pope counties. The yes were 597, the no were 739, so it was voted down. And the first half of property tax season is steadily bringing in lots. We're ahead of schedule on that. People are paying their taxes. The due date is May 15th. Some other things are tax forfeiture. We're doing webinars almost weekly with the Department of Revenue. Just an update on that. We typically gave a one-year auction. We could potentially have, with this new law, 9 sales, 9 auctions a year. So my staff that does this, my deputy, she is readily working on all this data that she needs to research and collect, and that's almost full-time for her now, where it was just a portion of her job. I'm proud to say that Todd County went to the online auction service due to that fact of potentially having 9 auctions, and we've kind of been the leader of that. So during these webinars, we are actually speaking, and counties are following what we did. So that's a kudos to my office and my staff. Also, we've been running into some issues, and I just want to address it. The board items are due 3 p.m. on Wednesday. We're not getting a lot of those, and that's leaving my staff having to work late on a Friday night, and that's not fair to them. So in the upcoming months, we plan on doing a board meeting protocol at the department head meeting and relaying that message to them. So that's what I have today. Thank you.
Very good, very good. We'll move on to County Coordinator.
All right, this past couple weeks, I've been working on a possible move of our GIS office over here to the courthouse. Attended a policy meeting, a department head meeting, an ancillary benefits meeting with Integrity, Paycom meeting, Parks and Trails Board meeting. Have been working on grants for Todd County. Went to a solid waste meeting, Health and Human Services staffing work session, and a meeting with the labor attorney. Busy.
Very good. Commissioners, we'll start on my right here.
All right, well, it's for sake of time here, business as usual, nothing really out of the ordinary to note in the meetings between the last one and this. I mean, it was only a week. We didn't have a ton going on, but I do want to note that we do have the comp plan kickoff today at the Browardville Community Center at 6 p.m. for all of you listening out there.
Good reminder, very good, yes. Next, Commissioner Denny.
Yeah, I'll mimic Coordinator Jackie Bowers. I was in a lot of those meetings with her, and it's been a busy time. We also, again, what Lou said, comp meeting tonight, Spring Road meeting tomorrow morning. So Bob and I, we got a deep dive a little bit into the first quarter budget and finance yesterday, which was good. Trying to stay on top of that throughout the year here, so just be conscious where we're at. Other than that, nothing else new to report.
Thank you, Commissioner Becker.
Yes, attended the annual township meeting with the rest of my commissioners. We also had a special work session last week, and I attended the Rainbow Rider, which we put out bids again for our bus garage in Alley. So we hopefully will get a bid accepted this time and be able to build. We also had a correction meeting last night and also an advisory meeting, correction advisory meeting. That's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Newman.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I attended the annual township meeting, Park Board on the 9th, Rainbow Rider on the 10th, Solid Waste on the 10th. Also, the Health and Human Services work session on the 10th. Yesterday, Park Finance. I did find it interesting on Care 11 that they did cover the tax, the case in Hennepin County where the tax forfeiture, it was really interesting how it's affecting us counties yet. You know, and they use that 100-year-old process, but hopefully we can get that changed around a little bit. Otherwise, Rainbow Rider, I think is like the 6th or 7th time we're putting it out for bid. Most of our contractors cannot meet the federal quota of minorities. We're hoping this time that they can, the outfit that got the bid this time has enough. We're looking at like 7%. 7% minorities in order to get this bid. So like I said, it's the 7th time, probably the 3rd time we've put it out for bids. So it's getting really frustrating to build a new transportation bus barn in Alec. It's just nuts. So that's all I got, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Myself, the biggest thing I was thinking I want to press is that I think the work session last week with HHS was well participated and well worth the time, even though it was another day that we weren't planning to be here. Otherwise, I think our time today at this work session would have been, at board would have been very, very lengthy. So we should be thankful that we all were able to be there. They did a great job. And then maybe we start thinking about those those months that have 5 Tuesdays in them, and maybe adding a work session on those months, which are 4 or 5 months out of the year, just to kind of speed up some of this business that tends to get bogged down. So good job, everyone. Given that, we'll go to recess and come back to work session. Everyone take a quick coffee break. Go from there.
Got it.
The time is 10:02.
Tables only.
Come back around 10:07. You get 5 minutes.
Now I'm ready. I'll be able to hear you. You talk loud, but talk loud into those microphones and announce that too, Bob, that everybody talks loud into the microphone because there's a lot going on in here.
All right, good morning. The time now is 10:08, and we are back in session. We're gonna have our work session, have a full crowd here. We're gonna do it round table style so we can look each other in the eye. And I just remind you, speak into the speaker because it gets pretty muffled if you don't, so. Welcome, Representative Wiener and Senator Etke. Appreciate you coming. So at this point, should we let you start with kind
Yes,
of a
they can introduce themselves.
State of the Union? Should we do introductions?
We should do introductions.
Let's do introductions, all right. We'll start to my left here.
You're not talking into the speaker.
Commissioner Randy Newman.
Commissioner Tim Denny.
Mike Eberly, Solid Waste.
Mike Wiener, representative for 5B.
Paul Etke, State Senator.
Lisa Portica, MIS Director. Melissa Wyman, Economic Development.
I'm John Manson. Stephen McCoy, Financial Support Services Manager.
Catherine McAdams, Public Health.
Kim DeCock, Adult Services Manager. Jackie Ott, Todd County Health and Human Services Division Director.
Kathy Langer, Director at Todd Wadena Community Corrections.
Lou Noshka, Commissioner for District 4.
Bob Byers, Commissioner, District 3. All right, who's gonna lead this whole thing here? Me, Jackie, the men?
Your chair, you're gonna.
All right,
lead
well,
this.
I'll kick it off then. Thank you again for stopping in. We appreciate it. Maybe we have a list of questions we probably want to go over, but perhaps you might take a minute or two each to tell us what's going on and what you want us to know and state of the state. Does that work?
State of the state, when we're home this week, you're safe. But no, we are just living what you're seeing on the news and reading about, and I know a number of you have stopped down to see us throughout the session so far, so I think you're well up to speed on all the craziness that's going on, and as we were just discussing, we now have reached the end of the first round of putting bills together, and so they'll start to hit the floor and there'll be more conversations. But in the end, I think the conference committees are going to be quite interesting because there's a lot of difference of opinions, a lot of difference of ideas between parties and between the different bodies, including the governor's office. So there's a lot of things that have to be molded together and try to make something workable come out of it. But I will pass it to Mike, and because you got a bunch of questions that are going to dig in deeper to these things too.
Well, thank you, Senator. So for those of you who don't know me, Mike Wiener, this is my second term. And you learn a lot in 2 years. It's kind of amazing. We went from an $18 billion surplus to a $6 billion, $18 billion surplus, yes, to a $6 billion deficit in a short amount of time. And I guess the best comparison that I usually come up with is I talk about lottery winners. The average lottery winner goes and files bankruptcy within 5 years. It's an amazing statistic. It's something like 90%. And I compare that to what has happened in our state. We went from that huge surplus to now saying we're gonna be looking at a deficit and what happened to the money. And what we're seeing in the state, and I've talked to some of the commissioners about it, is in order to balance that budget or to make sure that the numbers match up, we're seeing a shift. And you can call it an accounting shift, you can call it the balance, however you want to do it, balance the books. But the funds, in order to keep some of those projects going, or what the state and governor's project or proposed budget is looking at doing, is shifting some of that debt onto the counties. Which means you guys are not gonna be very happy, or your citizens are not gonna be very happy with the county commissioners when the real problem here comes from much higher than you. And I think I've made it known, I try to be on the radio as much as possible, and I say this is not our county commissioners' issues. This is an issue above them, and hopefully, when it comes to some of that aggravation with the citizens, we can deal with that beforehand, and I hope that by planting that seed helps you guys out. Because that shift of budget, we're talking about a lot of money. And how are we gonna balance that? How are we gonna figure out the end of session here? And like the senator said, those conference committees are gonna be very interesting. In the House, we have a tie, 67-67. The Senate, there's one vote majority, which means the House, our bills coming forward have been pretty moderate, pretty mainstream or middle of the road. The Senate side has been a little bit different. The budget differences are there. I serve on the Energy and Tax Committee. And there's big differences just in those two committees about between the Senate and the House, about what those budgets are gonna look like moving forward. And after the House gets done with their bills, Senate gets done with their bills, we come together for conference committees, and people have said, how is this gonna pan out? You've got more experience in it than I do. Anything is possible between now and the end of session. But we have a balanced budget amendment in the state of Minnesota, which means we've got to come to some agreements about where that money is gonna get shifted or transferred from. And I'm sure we're gonna go into some of the details, paid family medical leave and so forth, but we'll try to fill you in as best as we can. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Well, let's get into a couple of these items. I think I might jump around a little bit based on this order that's in front of us. But the first one I wanted to really jump on, though, was the sentence to serve, because sentence to serve in our area, many of our departments do use this service: solid waste, public works, facilities, and Catherine Langer's here. She's in charge, works in that program, and maybe she might have some insight that would help illustrate the importance of that program to Todd County.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity, Senator Utke and Representative Weiner, to have a little bit of your time today, and I know your time is precious. We have run sentence to service in Todd and Wadena counties since 1991. And what the program is an opportunity for people who are coming through the justice system, either on probation or not on probation, serving time in jail, or being in the community. And it's a way for those folks to work off fines, to work off supervision fees, and just to work to give back to the communities. And so I'm sharing with you a snapshot of, almost 30 years. And what it contains is a list of projects that Sentence to Service worked on in 2024. This does not include the community service work that's done individually at sites, but you can see how many places in our two counties that Sentence to Serve touches. The premise is that Sentence to Serve does the work that nonprofits, governmental entities, community organizations could not otherwise do if they would have to pay for the labor. So the project sites have to come up with their material, but then Sentence to Service provides the labor. And you can see on there the number of hours that go into each of the counties and so many places within our two communities. We've gotten state funding, as I said, since 1991. While this is not a mandated service, you can see the hole that would be created if the funding goes away and if we are not able to provide this service. In addition to giving back to the community, the people coming through the program also get to learn. They get to learn how to do a job, learn new skills. We will write a letter of recommendation for them. It's something for them to be proud of and to take ownership in their community. I'm happy to answer any questions for sure, and thank you again for the opportunity.
How much state funding do you get, and what is needed to run the program?
Well, the counties already pay for the bulk of the program. Approximately 11 to 12 years ago, the STS state funding got slashed drastically to where we were getting a 1-to-1 match. Now it's a 1/4 match. So we get basically a quarter of our spending of our budget from the state. So we're Todd Wadena Corrections, if I may, Mr. Chair, go into the other two because they are related.
Yeah, feel free.
Thank you. So Todd Wadena,
Switching gears?
I want to build some context for sentence to service. So we get about $55,000 from the state each year for sentence to service funding. In 2023, with regard to community supervision funding for probation supervised release, the legislature did an amazing thing, and you passed a single funding formula, which meant that all counties were equalized in terms of what they would get for funding for corrections, including the Department of Corrections. However, at that time, it was very clear and understood that while that was a fantastic leap forward, it did not make counties whole. It did not come into compliance with the Subsidy Act, but it was a great leap forward. And so now we are faced with, as Representative Wiener said, a deficit, and we've got two bills, one in the House and one in the Senate, requesting additional funding to go into the community supervision funding. If Todd Wadena, if there is no additional money put in statewide, Todd Wadena counties will lose funding. We've run the numbers, we've gotten them from the state. If there is no additional funding, we stand to lose based on the formula. So the effect on us for STS, coupled with if there's no additional funding put into the community supervision, and we lose probation funding, that could be devastating. We have, back in 2023, there were a lot of strings attached to that additional funding. And many of them we've been able to implement because of the additional funding, cognitive skills classes, many more evidence-based practices and core correctional practices. We know those work. They've been proven to work statewide, and we just ran our recidivism numbers very recently, comparing the folks discharged from probation in 2021 and then measured 3 years later. How many of them stayed out of the system, did not come back in for a misdemeanor level offense or higher? And for the adult probation, it was 86%, which is pretty good. But if you break it down and look at how many of the folks discharged within 3 years didn't come back for, or only came back for a felony, we had 95% success. And that means that's a direct impact on public safety. The only way we can accomplish that is through hard work and time, and it takes staff to do that. So I'm hoping that there is some kind of resolution with the community supervision funding that allows for an increase in funding. Additionally, one part of the bill for community supervision funding is moving from a single year look at the probation population to a 3-year average. Right now, the statute calls for a single look, so we look at 1 year of probation data. That can fluctuate so much that we are hoping that the language of the 3-year average to provide a little flexibility and allow us to do some longer-term planning would stay included. And then the last thing, and I know Senator Aki, you are an author of the Youth Intervention Program funding bill, and I thank you for that. This is a competitive grant cycle again, so we utilize Youth Intervention Program funds for our Community Concern for Youth program. That's for kids who are coming into the system either through the law enforcement, county attorney's office, or the schools. And the whole goal is to do what we help them stay out of the system, not have a file attached to their name, not have their name be in a court record anyplace. And again, having just run those stats, in 2021, out of all the kids that completed the program, only 2 came back for any kind of a criminal offense, which it's telling us that the communities are safer because of that. So I'm hoping that that we are able to stay strong on that as well, the youth intervention program funding. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. You know, I got a call from our sheriff. This is got a somewhat related, but it might be off the topic. But I got a call from our sheriff the other day, asked me to help with a vehicle that we purchased during CARES Act. Is that right? Back in 2020, we purchased a vehicle for the CARES Act to transport dead bodies. Does that sound right? So it was a grant, right, from the federal government? Federal, state, somebody?
It's federal government.
It's
federal money.
Federal money, which says, you know, we're supposed to use it for this specific purpose, or it sits, or we return it. When STS could use that van for transportation, but because of auditing and things like that, it sits in our parking lot for 5 years now. Nothing. We can't use it for anything. We're not transporting dead bodies around here. Where the heck's the common sense in this? I mean, we'd like your help to get some type of exemption. I don't know who we got to talk to. Maybe just point us in the right direction, or if you want to help out, that's great too.
It was written by the sheriff at the time the CARES Act money was here. Under federal government and audit standards, there was a summary that was written by the sheriff at that point in time that it was designated to transport bodies in the event of COVID issues, whether it was transporting them to the hospital if he had an emergency in the sheriff's department, or transporting deceased bodies from COVID to quarantine the disease. But it's been stated to the federal government in the summary specifically for that. So we are guided by federal rules and regulations as well as audit standards. So we've been following that practice. Now, I'm not saying that I disagree with the fact it could be utilized, but we're bound by that. So
we don't want to be bound by that.
That's our problem.
Is there an expiration on how long that had to go?
No, that is just written with the CARES. It's endless. It will sit there until that van rots. So, I mean, the only other option we have with that van is contacting the federal government and having them, it's their property, so they could call it or take it back at any time. It's titled in Todd County, but it's earmarked that it's federal government property.
I imagine there might be other counties in our situation, or, you know, there's probably buildings that were built for stuff like this too that are sitting there with, you know,
you can't sell
microscope covers over the top of microscopes, and
can't sell it, no.
you know, we may not know exactly where to go. I know the team's been working on it. They've asked for help in the past, and now we're asking for help from yourself.
Have you done anything at all as reaching out to, let's say, any of our federal people at all? Or, I mean, if you haven't, that's okay, because we'll start it from scratch, but I just want to know some steps taken already.
No, you have to start from scratch, because we were not giving any federal contact. even to reach out to CARES. All we're required to do is our federal reporting. And since the CARES money was completely used, we don't even need to do any filing or reporting anymore. We're just filing and reporting on the ARPA money at the current time.
Thank you. Okay.
Tax dollars at work.
Well, you know, exactly. I mean, common sense maybe doesn't always rule the roost here, but it should, you know?
Exactly.
I mean, you know, we talked about as long as the insurance stayed under somebody and the maintenance was done, anyway. Okay. Another big item on here would be governor's proposed budget. Number one, governor's proposed budget related to HHS.
Right, I think we're all familiar with this topic. I know there was, AMC had requested, all 87 counties to kind of collect what does that mean locally? And I believe Denise, you had sent that email in saying for Todd County, our estimated increase for levy would be an increase of, was it 3 to 5%?
Right,
For some
probably
reason,
in that
that's-
category. I'd have to
I'm
pull that
recalling.
email up again.
So again, it's gonna be a significant shift or increase to our levy dollars. It will dramatically increase our taxes, but that 5% cost share for disability waivered services for Todd County alone is in the tune of $664,000. So I believe
664?
664, almost 665 for Todd County. 664, 743. And again, these are mandated services. At one time, we were able to manage those budgets. Kim, how long ago was that? Maybe, I think it was pre my time. I'm here for 11, 12 years. So we were able to manage that budget here. And we did a pretty good job of that. Counties did a really good job of that. And then the state said, no, we're gonna take that over. But in the meantime, they opened up the floodgates. And so those floodgates are open. So now that, you know, that's, you know, gonna be a cost shift to us in the tune of $665,000. And it being a mandated service is quite concerning. So it's something that we are continuing to monitor. I'm on a state work group with DHS, AMC, and MAXA to try to see how we can move forward with this potential cost shift. Do we look at scaling some of those programs back, look at eligibility? How can we work with the department in assuring that in the tails, as we look ahead, that these costs don't continue to rise? They're rising, and as more people are becoming more eligible, so will their needs. So trying to really work hard at curbing those costs in the future is a big concern.
And in trying to prepare for this possible cost shift, we've looked at each of our clients, and it's not that we can try to serve them in their own home, which we would gladly do, but these are our most vulnerable and disabled and sometimes dangerous population that they need that 24-hour care. We don't have a housing capacity here in Todd County to move everyone to their own apartment, nor do we have the providers to be able to staff 24 hours, even if it was remote staffing. So we feel very stuck in trying to help with this issue.
Yeah, what the governor's budget proposes is absolutely insane. But the part that when you put numbers to these line items, we got a bunch of things on this list that are all gonna have big costs to the county. Please share with us, I mean, the $664,000 for that line item. Numbers are, you know, data is wonderful, and sometimes if we hit them with enough data, something might stick, rather than just saying costs are going up, when it's now, you know, and other counties have given us numbers like this too, that it's dollars for a specific thing, and I see some other things that you're gonna tell us some pretty big numbers on as we go forward. But please do keep feeding us that information as much as you can, because it's stuff that we can use as we try to move that needle some, because, I mean, what they're proposing is absolutely crazy. And HHS is getting hit big time. And those shifts, at the same time, they're willing to spend money in other sectors, which is totally unreasonable. And in the end, state's got plenty of money. We don't have to cut these services that we're dedicated to carry out. I mean, state's obligated and they're passing an obligation on to the county. These are things that we're responsible for. There's plenty of money in that overall budget that's still being wasted, spent on things that we would say are just totally, government shouldn't have any part of. So we're just trying to get them back on track as much as we can, because we don't need to do these things.
For example, you'll probably hear this afternoon, I sat next to the Hubbard County HHS director yesterday, and we added up the 28 top paid DHS psychiatrists or staff, $10 million. $950,000 they're being paid for 28 people. They are paid twice as much than they are in the state of California and New York. And one of them lives in Brainerd. And that in one psychiatrist is like in the tune of almost $700,000 a year. Those costs that are being shifted to us for these high-paid, needed psychiatrists, don't get me wrong, they're needed, but they're very expensive. And that cost is being shifted to us as levy, to our levy and our taxpayers, which is ridiculous.
It is. It's irresponsible. I
They're
mean, we
needed,
see that.
but-
We've seen other things come out in the last couple of weeks where, I mean, whether it's salaries that are being targeted or whatever, I mean, they're just not in line with where government should be. If the government's providing the service, let's do it in a responsible manner.
Yes, and I would just like to point out with these numbers that these are our people, these are our neighbors, people we see in the grocery store, out and about, and they're very vulnerable, and to possibly restrict what they can do to be successful is very hard to watch too.
Kind of hand in hand is the system modernization, but also the MAPA is the Minnesota African American Family Preservation and Child Welfare Disproportionality Act.
Could you guys stop putting so many acronyms on everything? I mean, it's.
I want to say file 716 because that's the Senate file.
I feel like I'm in the National Guard or military or something here, my God.
And we've got an acronym for an acronym. And not all of them
Not you
align
guys, but
either.
whoever does it.
This is, it's something that's gonna happen. Representative Wiener and I met Senator Utke a few weeks back. It's gonna happen. But we don't have the systems modernization to support the additional cost that it's gonna be in order to implement. And John, turn on your microphone. You could probably speak to this a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, there's reporting guidelines from the state that we need to provide to the state. Or we're a small enough county that we could probably, sit down with pencil and paper and do it. But the way the act is written, every family that we come in contact with is going to be affected by this act. And by being affected by this act, you're gonna put an already taxed system to its limits even more. You're gonna be having active efforts on every single case that we touch. You're gonna have kids returning home prematurely. You're gonna have us providing service to families that are not directly related to us. We're gonna be involved in families that aren't even in our county. I mean, just looking at the act as it's written, if it's apples to apples comparison, it's a $500,000 increase that we're gonna be spending on the county ourselves. We're gonna be adding staff, we're gonna be adding training, we're gonna be doing all kinds of things that are gonna have a direct effect on the county itself. We had a worker yesterday, for an example, that was sitting down, getting back to systems modernization, that was supposed to be writing a 34-page out-of-home placement plan. The system that we're working out of crashed continuously, didn't even start the plan. It's a court mandate that we have it filed within 30 days, but how can you get it filed when you have a system that won't even allow you to create it, to start on it? So there's just many different things, how it's gonna affect our county.
Are you filing it on the same system through DHS that everybody else has problems with?
Correct,
Okay.
across the board.
Last week, we had a work session, and Stephen brought, how many of the applications did you bring on, like maybe 10 of the 17? Different
Yeah,
applications?
It wasn't exhaustive, there was probably 20, I would say.
And the stack of each financial assistance program had its own application, and it was like the St. Paul, Minneapolis phone book, 30 years ago. They don't do phone books anymore, but anyway, it was this thick. And then if you have to do that in English and Spanish, and the amount of input that's got to put, I walk through HHS, we all do, and people are, you were here, you saw the people we hired. We're constantly trying to find people because you got to put, one system doesn't talk to the system, right?
That's right.
They're going to drive self-driving cars in California and Texas. We can't put and the state government is spending millions on, or I should say state government, proposed just to watch the Doge cuts. They're putting, at least this is what I've heard, they're developing a monitoring system, software system to monitor the Doge cuts that affect Minnesota. If they got money to do that, they could surely help out our constituents and our employees to do their jobs, better. You're right, some of these spending things are ludicrous, so.
Did you say that you've heard Minnesota is
I've heard
kind
Governor
of
Walz proposed putting
wanting to study or to watch what's being maybe cut
yeah,
from
that's
Minnesota?
being cut. Yeah, a software system.
That's interesting because the software system is so antiquated, I don't think it can do multiplication.
They're talking about developing.
Unless they chicken scratch, because that's what we're left to do.
Back in 88, 87, Curtis Hatfield's class, I was playing Oregon Trail. It was more sophisticated than this stuff.
Yeah.
So.
You're referring to the SSIS?
Correct.
Okay. So we've had this discussion, Jackie and I, and actually that same joke I used in the tax committee when we were talking about this, because they said it's a DOS system, and I wish you were there, Bob, because I used the exact same line, because I said, so when they're waiting for the Wheel of Death, they can sit there and play Oregon Trail. So the bill that's moving forward now, and there's negotiations going on, and where that's gonna end up is hard to say, but there's a proposed amendment to that, which would leave about 40 million, if I recall correctly, for an update of that system. Now that would help with the interconnection with the other systems. The other thing that's been discussed, because I've had a lot of discussions with AMC about this. You brought it to my attention, 2 years ago when we first were talking about this, and the old green screens. And I thought, come on, it can't be that bad, but yeah, it's that bad. So that 40 million was gonna come out of something else potentially. And what has been discussed at this time is Hennepin and Ramsey had the 2 pilot programs for the African American Preservation Act. And then it was supposed to roll out statewide. Well, what has been discussed a little bit is that it gets implemented or followed through in certain areas. Duluth, Superior, Fargo, and probably Rochester would be next, and Greater Minnesota would have a reprieve for a while. That's been discussed. I had a bill that would push it back to 2029. Had some discussions with the colleagues on the other side of the aisle saying, look, you can train people, if you can find the people first of all, and implement this, you're gonna train them in a system, and then we all agree that the systems gonna have to get updated. So within a year to 2 years, you're gonna have to train all those people again in a new system. Where if we can just pump the brakes, the other thing is, if you're gonna do the pilot program, but there's no time at the end of the pilot program to analyze the pros and cons of the system that you're putting into place and just implementing it somewhere else, you're not gonna improve the system at all. So that was why we had said, let's push this thing back for 2 years. Let's get, some brains to pick this thing apart, figure out what works, what doesn't. Let's simplify it. Let's get the computer system in place. Our rep on the House side, Nolan West, and I have had some discussions on this. He's the lead on that committee. Like I said, I've talked to some on the other side of the aisle saying, work with us. Because the unfunded mandate that is going to hit a poor county like Todd or Wadena County is going to really hurt our citizens. Just pause the system. The people that are in the system now are getting taken care of. But if we don't have the computers, if we don't have the tools for people to do their jobs, and there was a person from Anoka County that testified on another thing, and she made the greatest line I think that I've heard down there, is that every minute that we're spending in front of a computer screen is a minute we're not helping people. And I thought that's absolutely perfect. Because if you're waiting for that green spinning wheel of death to take those downloads, what are you doing? You're just wasting time. And you're not helping the people that you mentioned. So I'm for pushing this thing back. Let's get the computer system fixed. And anything, if you don't build it the right way, if we take the transfer station, I'll pick on Mike Aberly here. If you started to tip those walls up without foundation, what's gonna happen? It's gonna fall apart. You have to start at the bottom. And with this program, if you don't put the tools in place, if you don't put the foundation down, this system will crash and nobody's gonna get any help then. So the discussions are taking place. I can't speak for the Senate side. I know I've had a little bit of conversation with Senator Hoffman as well as Senator Rutke, but a lot of times we're working and focusing on our own side. Senate is focusing on their own side, and then when that stuff comes together in conference committees, we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah, this bill has got a lot of challenges all across the state. I mean, we've heard from multiple counties and such. In the Senate, the one big problem though is this bill comes from Bobby Joe Champion, who represents the North Minneapolis Senate District, and of course, currently, we'll see how this goes because he's got other issues going on now too, but he's currently the president of the Senate, and we have approached him on trying to get this pushed back. And at this point, he has dug in and said no way, and he's got his people wrapped around his finger on that one. So we don't know where we're going. We're not giving up because this thing is, it's huge expense and all the things that come with it, that we got to do something, and we've got, trying to, I'd love to just get rid of it. We should go back and not, a few years back we had the same thing with the American Indians. Now we've got this. In my line of thinking is we don't need it segregated with all these different nationality names on it. We just take care of kids. You already knew and were processing and taking care of, whether it was through the foster care system or whatever. You had your program in place, and these things are just disrupting the whole flow. But as much as we would like to say, let's vote it out of there and get rid of it, at this point, I don't see that happening, unfortunately. If we can just kick the can down the road a little bit, that's gonna probably be the best we get at this point. But we'll keep trying right up to the last day because this is fast approaching. Was it January 1 of 27 it actually goes into effect. Ramsey and Hennepin are currently doing it as of the first of the year, but the rest of us have got a little time yet, but it's fast approaching. And you talked about $500,000 in additional cost. I know Wadena's when they first saw it and did some quick calculations, theirs was a little over $1 million. So I'm hearing some really large numbers from small counties, and so this is a lot of money being spent. And a lot of it's unknown. You're still trying to ramp up, taking into play what's on paper, so to speak, and but keep us up to speed on what those numbers look like and the challenges that you're facing.
And I think, they rough estimated, the 400 or the 40 million for investment with SSIS just to fix maybe what's broken, or isn't working, it's really gonna need an investment of $100 to $200 million to get us a system that is, what we need in order to support the work that we do. So it's a drop in the bucket, what they're willing to invest today, versus, what they're gonna put in state statute that require us to do the work,
To upgrade.
the upgrade.
But wasn't that many years ago, we put a couple $100 million into it. I mean, there's been a lot of money put into it. I don't know where they spent it because they didn't do anything productive with it from what we can see. So it's a major challenge, but somehow we got to hold their feet to the fire to make sure that if they get money, that they actually do what they're supposed to.
Right. Another one that is crossover between the jails and human services is just supporting state investments and creating a new comprehensive health continuum to address the Minnesota mental health crisis that we're in, facing within our communities and justice system. You know, the 48-hour rule, there's a 48-hour rule to where individuals who need treatment or placement within the state system, state-operated system, they have that 48 hours to be placed. Right now, they're calling that the high-priority admissions, and there was a task force that was formed around this. There's a 33-day wait to get them from our jails to Anoka Regional Treatment Center. So we need to invest in our mental health system so our individuals don't decompensate in our jails, and which we're finding is happening today. There's also a 527-day wait for our forensic mental health program at St. Peter as well. So these, when there should be 48 hours.
How much?
For Anoka Ramsey.
Or no, for St. Peter?
St. Peter is 527-day wait. I can give you this handout as well that has all these statistics on it. The do not meet criteria, we talked a little bit about that last year where we had an individual that cost us over $500,000, but we had some forgiveness. And thank you for taking us on, and we were able to tailgate with Beltrami County for, I think it was around $397,000 of that $500,000. So I wanna publicly thank you for including us on that cost savings to Todd County. But those dollars that, again, have been shifted to the counties, that the state had covered up until a few years ago, are going to the general fund. And when we asked the state, what does that equate for the do not meet criteria that the counties are putting into the general fund, and it was $34 million. We need to reinvest those dollars back into our mental health system to fix what is broken versus funding the general fund.
Yep.
So it was in total of $34 million last year's alone that was shifted to the counties. And the incentive was to have counties get individuals out of these state hospitals that didn't meet criteria to be there, but there's nowhere to send them. Our individual, I think, was almost a year in waiting, and then we found a home, and he was a 3-to-1 staffing, so we knew he was gonna reoffend. It was a matter of when. So we needed 3 staff members to that one individual. We lost our bed placement because we had to wait for a state fire marshal to come out and do an inspection. That took 60 days. That didn't happen, and we lost our bed. They couldn't wait that long. They couldn't hold the bed. So then again, we waited another 4 months at the tune of $2,300 a day. It's broken. They need to invest in our mental health crisis at this time.
And we also had to develop a home for him, so again, we're then getting hit with this possible 5% with residential services as well.
When you mentioned 527 days to get into St. Peter, that's absolutely ridiculous, because last fall I did tour that, and there were plenty of openings in there, and a lot of people in there shouldn't be in there anymore. I mean, there is a lot of capacity that's just not being used for the right purposes. And, you know, we saw a whole bunch of people that basically have aged out. They're way up in years. The problem is they've been in so long, they know no other life. And they've had, when they do have moved a couple out, it's not that they get in trouble, but I mean, they're just lost because the only thing they know is those walls that they've been in for some cases 30+ years. But the system is broke because we need to get them out, and we need to use that facility for what it's needed for, and that's taking care of those that have got serious mental illness problems and all the other things that go with it. So it's been something we have had many conversations on. I don't, you know, what we see, of course, they just broke off DCT into its own organization. That's not going to change any of this. And then they actually tried to, well, so far it's still set up. We'll have to see if these bills pass, but basically detach them from responsibility too. They're detached from the governor. They're detached from any elected official, which is totally wrong. And so hopefully we can get that piece back, but we need to rework a lot of what DCT is doing.
We would need an additional 350 beds for the current wait list.
Yeah, Jackie, at this point too, with the West Central Juvenile building within Moorhead too, and we're part of that, and we have beds up there also, and their building project is very, very
That's
necessary.
the Clay County West Central Juvenile Treatment Center bond request that is out there. Again, Clay County, Minnesota, in Moorhead.
The second time we're covering as much of this as we can, if we could maybe move on to a different
Yeah, sure.
area
We
for-
have one more thing with, I think, public health. Catherine, if you wanted to speak a little bit about our infectious disease and some of the things that we have going on here locally as well through.
Sure, and I'll be brief. I think you're both aware of the issues of new populations coming into our community, especially a rural county as us. So we have had lots of new populations come into Todd County over the last 30 years due to our packing plant, our other facilities that hire, right, that typically are looking for those workers. So what we've noticed over the past few months, as we've had a significant increase of Haitian individuals coming into our community, is the impact on infectious disease. So at this point, we do not have an outbreak at any point, but we've noticed of our 7-8 Haitians that are on our caseload right now for family home visiting, who appear to be the only ones seeking health care. So again, if you don't seek health care, there's no way to be screened for tuberculosis, HIV, AIDS, STDs, STIs, any other communicable disease, right? So of those who are seeking health care, mostly are pregnant women, right? That we have 4 cases of latent tuberculosis, right? We have some other chronic conditions as well that are not managed well. And as you can understand, coming from a country where there was no health care and coming here, they're often exacerbated by congregate living settings, right, by a lack of good nutrition, and then really just a lack of healthcare overall. Not understanding how to navigate our healthcare system is a big challenge. So our nurses, and we have 4 public health nurses, right, have been helping these clients. It is a requirement of public health to control the spread of infectious disease, right? But there's no dedicated funding from the state to do that. So last year, as an example, we had 1 case of active tuberculosis, right? That client required to be placed. He was homeless at the time. He spoke Spanish. He also had other infectious diseases at the time. We had to have a nurse work with him every day to ensure he was compliant with his medication. It cost us over $20,000 in unreimbursed visits. So those client visits that we billed to the state never got reimbursed. So $20,000 just for 1 case, plus all the indirect time, consultations with the Department of Health, consultations with his provider, all those things. I've added up to $60,000 that never got reimbursed for 1 case, right? So now as we start to see a new population that comes with it, lots of challenges for our local systems. Let's be honest, it's not just public health, right? And really that we have no control over. So we continue to see lots of new populations coming into our community that we are responsible for, right? As a county, we don't have a lot of other services. We don't have nonprofit advocacy agencies that work with these populations. So typically it does fall on local public health and social services. I'll stop there. So we could use dedicated funding for infectious disease. Right now, we have the local public health grant, $175,000 a year Todd County gets. We have our county tax levy. That's it, which I will say public health only used $197,000 of last year to offset its costs. But If we were to go into an outbreak, MDH may assist if there aren't outbreaks elsewhere in the state. And you can understand, like you've seen across the nation when a measles outbreak hits or something like that, we're on our own. So we are very much managing those cases and working with them very closely to make sure that they are controlling quarantine, isolation, all those things. With infectious diseases that are not like COVID, right, that are incredibly challenging with populations that don't understand what it means to quarantine, what it means to effectively isolate from individuals, and those who want to work. They're not here to quarantine, they're here to work and send their money back. So I think it's been really challenging. We've seen our new moms go back to work after 4 days of delivery, right? So we're dealing with a population that's here to work and often comes with some other issues that fall on our staff to assist them with. And we've been working really hard. We've been collaborating with healthcare. We've been working with ROB providers and other healthcare providers to best manage these cases. But if healthcare isn't available, it falls on local public health. And that's a big, big issue.
As local public health, what part of it, are you helping coordinate with those people to get them to the hospitals and clinics in the area? Or, I mean, that's kind of the part you play. Is that intermediary? Is that how we
So
look
for
at it?
tuberculosis, as an example, that's one of the main components. We have to do direct observed therapy of their medication. So that means we have to watch them take their medication. You also have to do case investigations to figure out where that infectious disease came from, who they've been in close contact with, and then talk to those close contacts to determine if the infectious disease has spread, right? So it depends on every case, right? And then absolutely we have to help. So this client had no transportation and had no housing. So how do we ensure he, is able to be compliant with his medication without those two? So yes, taking him to appointments, doing things like that can absolutely fall on us. We also, when they're in quarantine or isolation, are required to meet their needs for essential services, which is food, which is, we were paying this man's cell phone bill because how else are we going to get a hold of him, right? So yeah, that does fall on local public health. I mean, and then again, if we bill those visits to DHS, but based on what healthcare plan they're on, which some might not have any healthcare access due to their immigration status, it falls on us and we have to eat those costs.
Typically, does DHS pay those things? I mean, you just talked about 60,000 that was not reimbursed, but over the years, have they been paying, or are they just?
This is the first case of active TB I've had in 14 years.
Okay.
It depends on the plan. So it is a billable service, absolutely, and it should be reimbursed. It depends on where, it depends on how it's coded somewhat, and then also it has to be performed by a public health nurse, right? Or else it won't be reimbursed. So I can't say because we haven't always had DOT, but for other services, as long as they're under a PMAP, right? Prepaid Medical Assistance Plan, typically, but this individual was not. He was under emergency medical assistance, if you're familiar with that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you so much. Jump around here. How about solid waste there? You can call Mike out. What do you got, Mike, on solid waste?
Okay. As you can see, Mike was out to our facility last Saturday. So we are about 85% in completion mode of our new solid waste transfer station facility. So we are actively really in process of trying to get to the home run stretch here on getting that completed by August. So it's worked out really well. Really the biggest issue that we are struggling with right now is in January, we completed the last monies out of our $4 million CAP grant funds that we exhausted. And we have been waiting for Jeannie Givens with the MPCA to submit us the new contract for the additional $2.795 million that you guys was able to get for us in 2023. So currently, as of the end of January, we've exhausted those funds in the county and our solid waste enterprise fund. We are currently absorbing all the costs of the operation right now at 100%. So we don't have that matching funds available. We have not gotten any information back from the MPCA in that agreement for that additional funding. So we're kind of looking for maybe some direction from you guys if you can help us speed that along a little bit. So that's one thing that's been a little bit of an issue, so for us to get them remaining funds activated so we can draw from them. So that's really kind of what's going on that part of it as far as the facility itself being built. The other thing that we really would like to talk a little bit about quickly is the solid waste management tax funding. If you can scroll up to, there's the graph that we got in 2024. The state received just about $122 million out of that state solid waste management tax. And at the end is the SCORE grants where we get our funding from. So roughly about less than 20% of that money is coming back actually for solid waste facilities such as ours to use them funds to. So we would like to see more of that money returned to boots on the ground to help us fund recycling programs. We're looking at ash reutilization projects that we're looking at is using our waste ash into bituminous surfacing projects. We're actually doing our first pilot project in August in Otter Tail County. So it's a ways so we can completely use that waste and have it 100% recyclable. So some of that funding that currently goes into the general fund and that continued has increased each year. If you want to scroll up a little bit, if you could, Denise. There you go. You can see the revenue growth stream, and you can see at the bottom, the pink line is what gets given back to the Todd County solid waste funding growth out of our SCORE grant money. So you can see that we haven't got any more funding, but the revenue growth goes and that money disappears and does not stay locally within programs that we can look at improving our recycling and our efficiencies as we run our facilities. So that's another thing that we would like to see if we can get increasing funding and let that money stay back into these local accounts.
So these numbers that you had on the previous slide, that's just Todd County?
This is statewide.
Statewide, okay.
Yep, for the solid waste management tax. And that's the revenues, the $121.51 million that was for the calendar year of 2024. So,
Hey, Mike, or representatives, this is the second, department head here that's talked about money that was earmarked or allocated for specific use. One was in HHS, I can't remember what the amount was. Is the state of Minnesota continuing to take money from dedicated sources to put into a general fund, especially when we had a $19 billion surplus last year? Someone help me understand why Paul's being robbed to pay Peter, or what's the problem there?
Anybody with common sense is not going to be able to answer that because it's rotten. I mean, yes, we came from a $19 billion surplus and it got spent on a lot of irresponsible things. And we see this so much. I mean, we just spent a lot of time on, even in HHS, Health and Human Services, because they're two different agencies, getting to a point where we're finally going to rider the funding bills, which means the funding that's appropriated will be tracked to see if it's money is spent for this certain purpose, or the legislation is written for this special purpose, the money has to be spent for that. We're seeing a lot of things where money comes in and then gets used for totally different things. And it's all transparency, and there hasn't been any transparency in the past. And that's stuff like this happens. I mean, they can bury it into their slush funds, but I would really like a copy of what you got up there because, I mean, it's huge. Is that coming from the 17% tax that gets charged on our garbage bills?
Part of it, yes, and that's where the SCORE money comes from. We get some of that from our parcel fees as well, so yes.
Okay.
I mean, if they can do this, I can use that van for whatever I want to use it then for, my CARES van. Because you know what? Mom and dad aren't taking care of us, the kids. I might as well do what I want to do then. And then I want to hear if I get in trouble for it, because nobody else will get in trouble for it.
Well, we see a lot of times these funds like this, it took a while, I'm sure, to get to this. So there was, why I don't know for sure when the solid waste management tax was put into place. but I'm comparing it in my mind like the gambling tax, you know, the charitable gambling. So that's a staggered tax, and the intent of some of that was supposed to go to pay off the stadium. Now the stadium is paid off, where's that money going? The excess is going into the general fund, which was not the intent of that tax. So if this is kind of the same thing, it probably is. But there again, it's getting used to fund things across the state that the original intent wasn't there for. And to the point that you brought up here, and this is something I think that's very important, you brought up the state psychiatrists. And in my mind, this is where we need to be working and saying, these are issues, okay? When a state psychiatrist is getting paid this much money above other states, our cost of living is not as expensive as California, and yet we're paying individuals like that.
Living in greater Baxter area.
Exactly. So that money is not making it to the people that it's supposed to be making it to. Government has gotten, or I'll back up, government closest to the people is always the best. So like Mike is saying here, we need more of this money to stay local. These things, when you guys put them together and point them out, we can bring this back and say, look, this is where our money is getting spent. It's not intended to be spent here. But when we're in these departments or when we're in these committees and so forth, there's so much stuff that goes on, we don't see the particulars, okay? You see it in those committees that you might be on, but not in everything. Another prime example would be roads, okay? Went out to a project on I-94, talked to one of the engineers out there, and he started explaining some of the things, the intricacies, when they're building the roads and when they're doing this. And he said, I can save the state hundreds of millions of dollars. Right away, my ears perk up. How? He says, by engineering, and we can do X, Y, and Z, we can increase the longevity of those roads by 30 years if we just do this, and the cost is minimal. I went, we need to talk more. So when we get information from the experts that are the hands-on, those are the things that we can bring back. Just like the senator said, I want copies of the numbers that you brought before, Jackie. Those are things that when we're in committee, when we're on the floor, we can say, look, folks, this is why this is a bad idea. This is why this is a good idea. Here's the facts. Here's the numbers. When we're putting 36 million back into the general fund, to fund what? The intent was environment, was to go back to the local entities, and it's not doing that. So what is it funding?
Right.
And that's what we need to bring back. So I would say as the county level, department levels, these are the things that I want to hear from you guys and bring to us all the time. On the private sector, we do this in business. We look at things and say, how do you make your business more efficient, more productive, more profitable? On the government side, I shouldn't say we, but it usually is, how do you make government bigger? I mean, that is the natural projection of government, is to grow. And we very rarely look at how to make it more efficient. How do we make sure that those funds go to the place that it's supposed to be? How do we make sure when it comes to the African American Preservation Act that the money is spent on the individuals that need the help, not a bureaucracy in Minneapolis or in St. Paul? Those are the things that we need help with. And the scope of government is so big. We went from a $50 billion budget in 2022 to a $70 billion budget. That's almost a 40% growth. Where does all that money get spent? And now they're saying, well, we're gonna have a cut in the size of government. Not really. You went from 50 to 70 and you tone it back a few billion and you go, hey, this is great, we cut the size of government. No, it didn't. It grew 40% and it shouldn't have grown 40%. How do we get it back to, if you look at our state of Minnesota, we have not grown since COVID. We have not brought more jobs into the state of Minnesota. We've actually lost a certain amount of, not just jobs, but revenue but our spending has increased threefold. We actually need to go back to COVID era spending to get us back in line. And when you talk to people in government about this, you wanna watch somebody's hair start on fire, tell them we need to go back to COVID era spending and they blow up. But in actuality, the numbers reflect that. We need to get back to that, and that's why we need the information from you guys to say, this is how we can get back to that. So that our people aren't saying, we're gonna get taxed out of our homes. So that the counties are gonna say, hey, we've got more money here because of the money is staying local. We need to bring government back to the people as much as possible. So that we don't see these shifts, we don't see that 36 million in a general fund that shouldn't be there. So we actually need your guys' help more now than we probably ever did.
So Representative, just look at Fargo Moorhead. Look at that area. That's been on TV a couple times where Moorhead is losing population because they're going across the border into North Dakota into Fargo, West Fargo.
Yes.
Every time I drive up there, I got kids up there, Fargo's just exploding. They're putting up more and more apartment complexes and just growing. So a prime example of that is going back to the taxes. And we're being taxed. And a lot of this is being drove by the metro area. Right. And I hate to say it, but it is. You know, we have a little different philosophy out here in outstate Minnesota compared to the 7-county metro area. So.
It's taxes and regulations. The regulations were always excessive, but they've grown tremendously in the last few years. And I mean, you name the issue, and those border cities really hit it. We have spent a lot of time arguing over the scope bills for, let's say, optometrists and ophthalmologists, and you name the profession that sits on Moorhead's side of the river versus Fargo. And the difference is just huge. There's no way you're gonna get a building and put up your shingle on the Moorhead side when you can go across the river. And with the same qualifications and training, and you know, you can do so much more work. You've got something that's worth so much more. I mean, those are the things we gotta get under control. We can see it there, but that's just showing us what our whole state is, and we've gotta reel that in. But at this point, we need a few more friends to join us because those across the aisle from us don't see it like we do. Particularly in rural Minnesota, we see it differently than the metro.
I don't know, I tell you, I sit here, listen to this, and just, you know, I have a best friend in Long Prairie who I've known for 35 years, and we grew up together, we played football together, we did stuff together, and I just do less and less with him every year. You know why that is? It's because we all get busy. He's got kids, and now he's got grandkids, I have kids. You know, if you want to hear more, then we'll invite you back more than one time. You want to come back quarterly, that'd be great. I think the X's and O's is what we're missing out here. And we don't need to add people, we just need to talk more often, like this, instead of, you know, because we're gonna get busy. We get busy in our stuff, and you're busy in your world. But if we don't do this more often, face to face, it's gonna be the same, next year, it'll be the same, I guarantee you.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We always talk about that. We're all busy in our own worlds, but the state is run by those who showed up. And we do need to somehow take that break, and getting together more often is a good deal because we share knowledge, we learn from each other, and we can do better together.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lou's point to today, like we have made a decision on some people, and we'd like a 6-month review on that to know if it's working or not. Yeah, we made a pretty big structural change, so it's the feedback. You know, failure is fine, because that happens, but we gotta have the feedback to make it better.
Yep.
And that's what, you know, Representative Wiener just asked for, was more feedback, so, you know, hearing it from us face to face is, to me, has way more value than sending that email, so look for an invite in your mailbox for the next meeting, which will be before next year at this time, for sure. So, Mike, did you have anything else?
And I will say this, Bob, and I think we all kind of do this, every rep or senator in their own way. I would say that I stay in pretty close contact with Commissioner Newman. In Wadena County, there's 2 commissioners up there I stay in contact with. I said to Joel this morning, I have basically people that I talk to in different areas. When we had a piece of legislation about law enforcement, I didn't go to a lobbyist to figure out if this was a good piece of legislation or how it was gonna affect our people. I called our local sheriff. So I try to have a pulse on as much of what's going on, but we don't always see this information moving forward. Jackie and I have had conversations about the African American Preservation Act, and county commissioners from Wadena, we've had these discussions. So more of this, though, is what I'm saying. We need more of this to bring back. We've probably been talking about this for months already. So I do agree, we need more of that. It's not that it isn't happening. Maybe more people need to be pulled in. I would agree with that. But when I need information about things, I contact people locally. The other day, we had a bill that was dealing with contract for deeds. And I thought, this is interesting, I don't know enough. So I called up a realtor locally out of the blue and said, hey, I need to know if this piece of legislation passes, what do you think is gonna happen? Is this a positive or a negative? And I do that. Because I want information from my own, from, the people I represent. It does happen. Should it happen more? Yep. To what the senator said, we can all see things pretty close to the same out here, but how do we promote it down there? That's a big challenge. I like numbers, bringing these things back where we can show it to people, that helps. But when I need stuff, you're right, I usually stay in contact with the same people. Should I broaden that circle a little bit? Yes, I should.
Yeah, and we get busy too, so, I mean, I'm proud of the team some of the stuff they brought forth that is, new to you, or haven't seen, Right. And so that's what, look at the value of this meeting has already created. That's what happened when we did our HHH work session last week. We got a lot done, and it was fruitful while it was, took energy to do it and time, but it was fruitful, so, you gonna say something, Mike?
Yeah, and the one, just to reiterate a little bit of what Mr. Utke had said too, and what we really struggle with, and Mr. Newman and Tim Denny is on our solid waste committee, is the regulatory side of things. And the MPCA right now is looking at regulating us to do a sealed line landfill type of operation, which we currently do not have, which will cost the county and ourselves millions of dollars to establish it, and roughly $1 million per year to operate it because of the leachate collection. And if we choose to close that, which we probably will as being such a small county, we lose about $250,000 of a revenue stream out of that landfill. And not only that, then we have to hire probably another $300,000 annually because we'll have to truck that product to some other landfill, which will get revenue from us now, and we lose a lot of control by doing that. So the legislation side of that, we're waiting for the MPCA. They expect us to give us a 15-page document here by July. But again, just to talk a little bit of how crazy it is, and they can just go ahead and make a standard or regulation change without really having any discussion for facilities like ours that it truly affects. Right now, our Todd County residents pay about $18 a yard for waste contractors to process product through our facility. And we anticipate that cost to go to $40, $50 a yard if we do a lined landfill. So it's catastrophic for us right now. It's something that's very important for us.
How long is your permit still in effect for your landfill?
We got about 2.5 more years on the current cell that we're here.
We're seeing that a lot up north. I happen to be, we've got a 9-county area working together north of us here. We're trying to get some funding put through a bonding project, and I don't know where it's gonna land, because when you start to do it for 9 counties, it's a big number. And, it's the type of thing, when you talk landfill and the MPCA is doing this, and we see it around the state, a lot of the Department of Corrections is telling us our jails aren't sufficient in a lot of our counties, and we're having to rebuild these things, but there's no state money. They're mandating them, changing the rules, but there's no funding to follow, and that's our biggest issue, is if they're gonna tell us we can't do this, or we have to change, they gotta pay for it. But we're trying to get that through up there, because I think that will be a model of what counties are probably gonna be looking at down the road, but the fact is, the state's gonna have to participate, because it's expensive.
And we are actually part of that 9-county group.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How long do you think it'll be before Todd County is actually like Todd, Otter Tail, Wadena County? The regionalization of some of these services, dispatch, jail cells, transfer stations. I mean, that's what's gonna happen as they drive down these costs, you know, and what are we, I don't know, bottom third of revenue? I mean, they're gonna bankrupt Todd and Wadena County. We'll have to join with Big Brother, and then we won't have a say at the table when we go with Douglas or Stearns or somebody.
And then we're gonna look at how much money we spend to transport, in this case, prisoners all over. We're trying to do something, even though I don't represent that area anymore, but I used to have Baudette up at Lake of the Woods County. I still work with that because that's where I did it for years, but they need to put a law enforcement center in a jail, because here we do have towns a little closer together, but you get up in Baudette and you gotta come to Bemidji or wherever, it's an hour and a half, 2-hour drive to most of those places, and you're gonna be running your prisoners that you've picked up for whatever reason, you gotta get them to court, you gotta do all these things. I mean, the amount of money we're gonna waste doing that because we're not keeping those people locally is incredible, but they don't look at that. So there's a lot of those challenges ahead, because they consolidate things in the metro. Well, it's a couple extra miles. Here it's, in some cases, a couple extra hours, and they just don't comprehend. But it's definitely something that we continue to have those discussions, because we see some of that coming, and it's not for the better.
I think we got some AIS and some soil and water stuff we wanted to maybe bring up too. Anybody?
There we go. Green means go. All right, thank you so much for giving us a couple minutes of your time. It was nice to see you, Senator Hookie, up in at the Ag Water Quality Certification for RDOFIT. So that was good to see, and I know, Mike, you're around all the time in the community as well, and like these guys said, it's important. We're going to just take you back to some base foundation ideas, very different from the urgent needs of what's happening in our county with people. But for a really broad perspective, I'd like you to think about what makes the United States, Minnesota, and Todd County strong. And that comes down to the space, the resources that we have, and what we can produce from our counties. And so that is kind of the mission behind SWCD. And I have a little brochures that I'm gonna have Adam pass out. And it's basically the resiliency of our counties when we're talking about, basically what we're saying is that Todd SWCD counts on landowner involvement to proactively address natural resource concerns. We have no capital assets, no land control, and zero regulatory authority. But year after year, we're making great gains and strides in conserving our natural resources through a reputation for common sense. Hiring locally is another thing that's not necessarily on here. And unique and innovative approaches that will strengthen and buffer our native landscape loss, changes in weather, drinking water supplies, and wakes of economic fluctuations. Basically, those are the key things to making a country, a state, and a county strong. All of these other things, when we have a healthy state, a healthy government, are gonna be able to be rectified. So there's the broad scope. A couple of things that I wanted to bring to your attention is when it comes to SWCDs, we're one of the few programs where you're actually getting money from inputting money. So one of the documents that are up on the screen, and I do have that, you may have seen this. Could you hand that to Adam to pass out? Several times. If you go to the third page, Denise, is basically studies have been done throughout all sorts of states, Oklahoma, Minnesota, Wisconsin, on the value of conservation. And what it basically in short states that every dollar that you put towards conservation, $1.8 come around through economic development. So it brings you back monies. So I'm kind of starting with topic number 3. So the SWCD state aid that you guys appropriated for us, we got $172,000 here in Todd County. And that really helped take some of the guesswork out of the base operation budget for people like myself. And these dollars are applied to technical services, administration, outreach operations. And so 32,000 of that basically goes towards administration and outreach. The remaining 140 covers positions. So when you look at the picture in the middle of, on the second page of the pamphlet, you will see that we have here in Todd County, there's 7 SWCD employees, 1 manager, 1 front desk program coordinator, and 5 field technicians. 1 technician covers 3 counties, and she's on a limited grant right now. 1 covers 12 counties. 1 runs the feedlot program for the county. 1 runs the buffer program. 1 runs the WACA program, on top of getting this year 63 ecological projects on the ground. Also myself, I triple as the manager, the AIS coordinator, and the county water planner. So we're stretched pretty thin in our departments. So when we're saying that 172 that you gave us and 140 of that goes towards technicians, it covers 2 technicians. It does not allow for us to expand in technology or engineering services to meet the local demands. Going back to the value of the technical services, we have 1 engineer that serves 12 counties as well. And this has, what does this mean for you? There's a significant lag between landowners initiating a conservation project, receipt of a completed design, and actual installation of the project. Last year, West Central Engineering completed an additional $1.5 million in conservation projects here in Todd County alone. So we had the original 1.2 for ecological, 1.5 in engineering, and then you take that times the 1.8 for every dollar that's made, and that's what comes back into your county and regenerates. But at that same time, we have a list of 40 projects waiting for design by technical and engineering services, and some of our commissioners may have heard people waiting up to 2 years. All of these efforts that these volunteer landowners are wanting to make is improvements to protecting the health, the economic aspect, and the natural resources, our production abilities as a county and as a state. The rest of the pamphlet you can kind of read through, but I will talk quickly about aquatic invasive species. This is a county program, not through SWCD. We have 11 lakes currently infested with zebra mussels, and just last year, Higgins Long and Lake Charlotte were listed with impairments for zebra mussels. So we've got 2 new ones. More of a concern than zebra mussels, though, is Eurasian milfoil, Asian carp, and curly leaf pondweed. They are taking a substantial hit on the water quality of our lakes. Bordering our county right now is starry stonewort, spiny water flea, and the signal crayfish, all in the counties around us. Lake associations are focusing their resources on the control of invasive species, and for good reason. The southern economy of Todd County is stimulated by recreation, water sports, fishing, and hunting. Another good reason is as we lower our water quality standards, and this is the lowest percentage I could find, drops in lake-specific water quality equates to a conservative 11% drop in home values over time. Wisconsin was reporting between 13 and 15%. The state of Minnesota, if you look on certain resources, says a drop of 19% in home values once those lakes turn. Invasive species impact water quality and habitat, and new invasive species could actually cripple our lake habitats and reduce home values again. Right now, we receive $150,000 in aid prevention over the last 10 years. They're looking to cut that by 50%. I made a chart in the middle. You can see the AAS aid requests by lakes versus what is rewarded over the last 4 years. So in 2022, they were asking for $60,000. This is when I first started tracking this as a manager. We were able to assign them $26,468. 2023, they needed $331,912. I was able to assign them $20,293. 401, $790. They got $25,139,027. 139,027. This is Lake Osakis with curly leaf. This is Sauk with such an Asian carp issue that's so massive that the county can't even look at. I mean, the state can't even figure out how to control that carp. It is at, just real briefly, I'll be done here. So for a lake to be sustainable in carp production, you know, like if every lake has carp, but to be sustainable, that tipping point is about 89 pounds per acre. Sauk Lake right now is at 868 pounds per acre of carp. Carp produce phosphorus issues in lakes. Again, we're going back to what makes our county strong, what makes our state and United States strong is those natural resources, having the ability to make reproduction, to make produce goods, and to have space for people to develop in healthy ways. So that kind of brings it down to your base foundation of how to be successful.
So maybe you know, Deja, but when it comes to carp, why hasn't the DNR opened up spearing in the spring?
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like a sensible way to take care of it. If they're running, they're spawning in the spring. They don't generally spawn the same time as the walleye or the northerns. There's can be a little bit of overlap, but if you want to take out a rough fish, that to me seems like the sensible thing to do. But have they ever talked about it?
Not really. Right now, how they're handling that is actually they're harvesting them at unlimited basis, and they put them in tractor trailer trucks and haul them east for food. Yeah, I'm not sure. Again, I can't speak for the big agencies overhead and the decisions they make, but I think it's an issue of what you guys are saying, being set too far distance from what's happening on the ground, you know. So you made a reference about the MPCA making regulations that don't necessarily make sense. If we're too top heavy, that's what ends up happening.
Just a further comment on that, I believe, to the best of my knowledge, harvesting of rough fish in any fashion is legal year-round. The issue is that the problem's so massive, it makes no difference.
Yeah, you couldn't get enough people.
Yeah, you have to harvest in netting or something like
You'd have
that.
to gill net
any
them all,
remote
yeah.
impact on the carp population in these lakes.
I don't think you can spear them in the spring when they're running.
To my knowledge,
I don't know.
That's when I did it. When I was shooting carp down southwest, year-round, we'd cut holes in the ice to.
Well, yeah, you can spear them during the winter, but Spawning?
We'll
I'm pretty
let
sure
finance
after me.
do that, but
Right.
my understanding is even with any rough pop, you cannot make a dent with just individual human intervention. You have to have the large commercial operations to have any sort of impact on those populations.
Yeah, and I know that they've tagged and done telemetry. There we go. They know where those fish are spawning in Sauk Lake, and that's where they were harvesting. Obviously, they've had issues with thin ice and different things like that, but that was the goal there. But when you look at how much financial assistance is placed on a lake or on a county, that's a barrier there too, is just not being able to.
Yeah, I saw the trucks down at the Narrows, I think it was last week or the week before, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Loading up.
Yep.
Carp.
Trying to get as much as they can, but they usually get a pretty narrow window to get that. And I should also introduce our supervisor, Dale Catterhagen is here today. And I meant to introduce Adam as well. He's the division director.
Thank you. I think that might cover most of the stuff on the agenda. Is there any other items anybody wanted to add from our departments?
Yeah, I got a question. Who oversees the Lessard Sam's funding? Because I know Borden Water and Soil gets a lot of their money, I believe, out of Lessard Sam's for environmental stuff. So who oversees that? Because gambling, that's multi-million. And if you look at some of our outfits that are doing pull tabs, they're making a lot of money on the pull tabs. But just who's overseeing that? Lessard Sam's.
I almost think that, we used to have more oversight. The LCCMR committee and part of our environment committees had, basically they got to see it and appropriate it and have a little conversation. As far as I know, I'm believing that's a section that we actually even got further removed from. It's more of a committee operation, not related to the elected side. I would need to really follow up, but a lot of that always came up when we had what was the LCCMR pool of funding, which comes from the gambling pockets of money. And we would have to approve it, but yet, even though it came through as a vote, you didn't have much input. And that was the frustrating part, because it gets sold as being used for one sector and ends up getting used in a totally different way.
Right.
And that's the frustrating part. And, I guess the part that we got more removed from was the item with the tax that was on our ballot last year. That used to be more approval, and that now is further away from us too. But that is the frustrating part, because you mentioned a lot of the pull tabs and all these things. Our local nonprofits go through all the work to sell those things. Their money has been greatly reduced, so more of it goes into these funds that they get to do with what they want, and it's unfortunate.
Correct. Okay.
I think there's some different pots of money there. If you look at the pull tabs, I think now a good portion of that goes into the general fund, which is what it was not intended for. Yeah. And then the lottery money, I think, ends up in a different pot as well. And I think that's where some of that LCCMR and I can't remember the other acronym that it goes into, but there was part of that, and I can't remember all the details, but there was a bill that changed that last year, where before it had to be approved by the legislators, and now it's basically a committee, and then they rubber stamp it. So even that lottery money, which was, I can't remember the percentage, but that was supposed to go to clean water, legacy, all of that. That's broke up into 3 different parts now too. It's arts and heritage, something else, and then it's a third of it goes to clean water, which was not the intent of that to begin with. So there again, money that was earmarked for one thing ends up going to something else.
Exactly.
Anything else, anyone? We got a couple action items. I think the Representative Weiner and Utke, Mr. Utke, Senator Utke would like some information from, some numbers from the different people. So let's make sure we get them that because they asked for it. The last thing is just thank you for coming. We're grateful for your service. And I also want to say thank you to the Todd County staff. I mean, you guys came prepared with information. I'm impressed. We have I have always been impressed, but I'm very impressed again today. We have a great staff here, so good job, everybody. Very good. So we got to close this up here. Do we need a motion to close or no? Good. All right, everybody have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.